Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to Buckeye Politics. It's me, your favorite Ohioan. So today, as you can see, we are doing the 2022 Governor's Prediction. As of today, September 30th. But is it the last day in September? I'm not really sure. But anyway, that's besides the point. The point is we're doing the Governor's Prediction. The little channel update, the Blystone video will unfortunately not be out until Sunday because tomorrow I'm actually going to Rochester, New York, for a school/sport thing. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be epic. We're gonna be hanging out with the boys. But yeah, we'll obviously want to have a chance to record and upload the Joe Blystone video in the state of his campaign. So, but it does give me extra time to work on it on the ride there. So hopefully it will be in tip-top shape when it eventually comes out on Sunday. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Let's get into filling in the safe red states for the Republican Party in the governor's prediction. As you know, Trump did just make an endorsement of Kari Lake in Arizona. Interesting endorsement. Probably not my ideal endorsement, but still nonetheless a good endorsement. A lot of people are dooming about it or are overly excited about it. I'm kind of in between. I don't think it was a bad endorsement, but I also don't think it was a crazy good one. We'll get to that later. Safe red states probably include Idaho, Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa. I've seen a few polls out of there showing Kim Reynolds having a pretty high approval rating, and it is a red trending state and a red wave year. So I'm putting Iowa in the safe red column. The Deep South, no surprise in these states, and obviously the Northeast. We can't forget our dear friends in the liberal Northeast and Alaska. And I believe these are all the safe red states for the Republican Party. So the safe blue states are obviously the West Coast, Hawaii, Illinois, Maryland. That'll be a pickup for the Democrats because Larry Hogan will retire, and the rest of the Northeast. Although, actually, thinking about it, Connecticut could be likely. Uh, Ned Lamont, he did only win by a few points in 2018, which in a blue wave year, which may signify pretty possibly a possible flip up there. I really don't see it because he has had a decent approval rating from what I've heard from some people I know in Connecticut. He's not necessarily disliked. He's not like popular, but he's not necessarily disliked. So I do think that even a red wave year, Ned Lamont does hang in probably by about 5 points or so. The rest of the Northeast is going to be safe, obviously. So with that, we have all the more competitive states, and we're going to actually switch it up. We're going to go west to east. Like instead of Nevada, we're going to put Nevada in the Tilt R column. I say this every single video. I feel like I'm on like a broken record, but John Lee is the future of the Republican Party in Nevada. Former mayor of North Las Vegas, sort of a blue dog Democrat in one of the bluest areas in the state. He has switched parties to the Republican Party, and he's running for governor. He may, on policy-wise, he may not be perfect. He's certainly a little more moderate. He's Trumpian, but he's a little more moderate. But he still is perfect for the state of Nevada. We need to support him. We need to get him the nomination, and we need to get him into the governor's office. But looking at Arizona, obviously, Trump just made an endorsement of Kari Lake. Now, personally, I think that Kimberly Yee is more electable in Arizona, but not by much. They're pretty much similar. I mean, if you look at them on policy-wise, they're nearly identical. They're both very Trumpian. It's just one will yell it to your face, and the other will mention it in a conversation. So they're both very Trumpian, and they're both like not afraid to mention it. And they're both running on Trump campaigns. They're using Trump's name. They're doing all that stuff. It's just one does a little more than the other. So this will be a very interesting election to see how Arizona has trended, to see if it really is the neocon state we all thought it was, or if it's just full of John McCain simps. I've seen a lot of people dooming about this prediction. I would not about these endorsement. Excuse me. I really would not doom. I think Kari Lake is a good candidate. She is electable. I mean, Arizona's not gone for us, and it does have some populist tendencies. It's just I'm wondering sometimes how Trumpian can we go in some of these more swing states. It'll be interesting for sure to see what happens. But I am going to put it in Tilt R, even with Kari Lake. I'm putting his Tilt R. Red Wave year. Kari Lake and Kimberly Yee, pretty much identical on policy. But yeah, Arizona Tilt R. Looking at the states of Colorado and New Mexico, don't mean to do that. Colorado, I'm putting in the likely R, and New Mexico probably in the lean. It could be a little closer. New Mexico could be under 5, just because there is a lot of Biden's underwater in both New Mexico and Colorado. I'm not sure how much it's going to translate, but yeah, just the fact that Biden is so far underwater, and New Mexico does have some decent candidates, and the New Mexico governor is not exactly popular. I'm putting it as lean, probably not super competitive, but still some areas we should look at, probably but just under 5. Well, Colorado is kind of the opposite, probably about a 6-7 point Dem win. Not really much to say. Kansas. Putting that lean R. I think Laura Kelly. She's not necessarily unpopular, which is why I'm only putting it as lean R. Where you have a state like Maryland that's safe blue, and plus Larry Hogan is even up for re-election, so that's kind of a dumb analogy. But yeah, Kansas. I'm putting that as lean R. Uh, Kansas and Laura Kelly are interesting. Laura Kelly was only elected in the first place because of a third party. So if there's no third party, there's a Republican governor. So really, unless that same guy runs again, there is no reason to believe Kansas will stay blue, especially with how polarized we've gotten. Unless she gets crazy good turnout in the Kansas City area, in the Topeka, more Kansas City area, like the more suburban or rural, some suburban urban types in the Kansas Missouri border. Unless that happens, which I don't really see it, especially in a red wave year, I think Laura Kelly loses to pretty much anyone by a lean margin because she is semi-popular. That's why it's not likely or safe. But I still think she loses probably about 3-4 points. Looking at Texas, that's a likely R state. I would love to see Greg Abbott get primaried, especially because even both Republicans and Democrats agree that he is not doing an incredible job. I saw a poll; it was like he only has like a 42% approval rating in terms of not like approval rating, but in terms of like would you prefer him over like over just a different candidate? And he was only only 42% said that they would prefer Greg Abbott, while 58% of both Republicans and Democrats said they would prefer someone else. So that's interesting. Texas could be a little more. The primary in Texas is going to be very interesting to look at. I'm not sure how competitive it will be, but it will be interesting to look at to see what happens and if we can primary Greg Abbott. I seriously doubt that would happen, just because he is semi-solid and still, even among both Republicans and Democrats, a 42% people saying that they wouldn't mind him being the next governor is a good thing. But still, it will be interesting to look at. So I'm putting that as likely R. The border crisis isn't going to help the Democrats either. Minnesota, putting that as lean blue. Unless something crazy happens, some crazy out of the blue candidate comes out, I really don't see it. It's flipping. Most of the rurals are maxed out. Minneapolis is getting bluer. And even a red wave year, I think it only gets a few points closer. Now we have the state of Wisconsin. I'm putting Wisconsin as lean R. Tony Evers, he's not a bad I don't really know what to make of Tony Evers. I think he's going to lose for sure. Just by the margins, I'm not completely sure the margins, but he will lose just because the Wisconsin's such a red trending state that I'm confident Tony Evers will lose. Michigan, I'm putting that as in the tilt R column. I do think that as of now, James Craig will pull off a victory in Michigan. We've seen some very interesting polls in terms of people that are, in terms of Gretchen Whitmer saying that people don't necessarily approve of her and her policies with COVID. So unless she really makes a change and Republicans really aren't energized, James Craig should easily be able to pull off a victory in Michigan. By easily, I don't necessarily mean by a huge margin. I just mean he should be able to win it solidly. Looking at Ohio, Ohio's a very interesting state. Obviously, you have Joe Blystone and Mike DeWine and Jim Renacci. We're trying to primary DeWine. I'd say as of now, the most likely scenario is Renacci primarying DeWine, and then Renacci getting elected probably by about 7-8 points. Maybe closer to 6, 7, 8 points. Around a little less than Trump, but not that much worse, like what Josh Mandel would do. But yeah, Ohio I'm putting as likely are. The worst case scenario for the Republicans is that DeWine gets primaried and then he decides to run as independent. That would be the worst possible scenario. And in which case I probably put that as lean to likely D, just because crossover votes. Ohio will be very interesting to see how DeWine does in terms of crossover votes, because DeWine is actually semi-liked among Democrats, and among Republicans he's not disliked, but he's also not liked. He's disapproved by both Republicans and Democrats in Ohio, but it's actually similar just because Democrat support for him is up, Republican support for him is down. So it'd be interesting to see if there was sort of this like center left, center right people that supported him if he ran as an independent, and then the more Trumpian conservatives support someone like Renacci, and then the more liberal would support whatever Democrat candidate there is. That'd be interesting to see. I doubt it will happen. Chances are Renacci gets in there, but still interesting to look at. Pennsylvania, putting that as tilt R. Actually, I don't really know about Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is going to be a very close state in the governorship. The Senate race, I'm pretty confident it'll go Republican, but in the governor race, it'll be very competitive. But I am giving it the tilt R, I guess you could say, marking the tilt R, putting it in the tilt R column, because obviously it's going to be a red wave year. I mean, whether people like it or not, it is going to be a red wave year. Republicans are going to overperform. They're going to do well. And really, most elections do end up just coming down to turnout. I mean, if you look at the 2020 election, if like less than 1%, like if half of 1% of Democrats didn't show up, Trump would still be president. It really just comes down to turnout, especially with how polarized we've gotten. If Republicans show up, just because of how polarized we've gotten, Republicans will win. Vice versa also applies for the Democrats. So I'm gonna put when a state like Pennsylvania, where really it's a pure toss-up, I look at the national environment, and I see Pennsylvania going red. Virginia, I'm putting that as lean blue. I would love to see Glenn Youngkin win. He's an incredible candidate. He's run an incredible campaign, but it's Virginia. I mean, unless he gets crazy, good turnout in the rural areas and he runs up the margins in Nova, he really doesn't stand that much of a chance. He makes it close. He probably only loses by about 2-3 points, but I still think he loses, which is the end of it all. No matter if it's close or if it's not, it's still a loss, and it's kind of a black pill, I guess. That idea, but it is true, and it's something we got to look at because we can't keep losing like we have been. And Glenn Youngkin, he's fighting like hell to win, but I'm just not convinced it's enough yet. Looking at October, when it come October, that'll be very interesting to see how the polls and stuff go. I think Youngkin has a chance, and I think he's doing everything right. Just I don't see it as of now, so I'm putting his lean hard probably by about 2 points. Georgia's crazy. I'm putting Georgia as lean blue. Brian Kemp has no support. Republicans, Democrats, just no one. Democrats hate him because they think he's a racist who stole the election from Stacey Abrams. Republicans hate him because he won't sign the bill. So really, unless he gets not sign the bill, that's stupid. Because of his anti-election stuff. So really, unless he gets primaried and there's some crazy good Republican who gets in, I really don't see anything happening in Georgia. Kemp may lose by a likely margin, especially against someone like Stacey Abrams, who will run up the margins in inner city Atlanta and Savannah and places like that. Yeah, because Kemp's going to get no turnout in the rural areas. He's certainly not going to get any in the urban areas or suburban areas against someone like Stacey Abrams. So yeah, really Georgia at the governorship's level, unless we get a primary. Unless Kemp gets primary to Georgia at the governorship level, is pretty much gone. I mean, you even heard Trump. Trump said he would prefer Stacey Abrams over Kemp. I'm not sure how true that is, but still, the fact Trump said that is still shows how far Kemp has fallen. Florida, Ron DeSantis, easy, likely. I'm a little more conservative on my prediction than I was a few months ago when I had him winning by like 10 points. I think he'll probably win by about 5-6. The DeSantis hype kind of just died. Like, honestly, I went everywhere you went, it was just DeSantis, and now it's like, oh yeah, DeSantis likely are. Oh yeah, DeSantis, he'd be a decent nominee. He'd be a decent VP. And I think that's what happens when you get so popular early in a presidential cycle, is you just kind of run out of steam. He still has steam, don't get me wrong, but the DeSantis hype kind of went up there way early. I mean, we're not even at the midterms yet, and just people were saying DeSantis 2024. You see DeSantis 2024 stickers, and that just whole thing it's starting to die. I mean, it did die. It could have come back, yes, if DeSantis wins by a huge margin and his approval rating goes back up with COVID maybe and all that stuff. Then yeah, it could come back. But still, I think it's crazy how much American politics fluctuates. Especially if you look at just maybe 6 months ago, how everyone was talking about DeSantis, and now it's like, oh yeah. So yeah, DeSantis will win. Probably by a likely margin, 5-6 points. Should have no issue beating either Charlie Crist or Nikki Fried. Not Crist. He should have no issue beating either of them. But yeah, still, likely R. New Hampshire's interesting. I'm putting New Hampshire in the tilt R column. If Sununu runs, it'd probably be lean to likely. Maybe even safe. Who knows? With Chris Sununu at this point, Cookie Man. But if the Democrats run, but if Sununu runs for Senate and there's a Republican, then I do think it's kind of a 50-50, kind of a split. Depends on how they run their campaigns. But yeah, I do think but since Sununu has not yet announced for Senate, I'm assuming he's going to run, and so I'm kind of balancing them out and putting it as tilt R. Maine, I'm putting it as lean R. Janet Mills is a good candidate. I mean, not lean R, lean D. Janet Mills, she's a decent candidate for Maine. She's not too far left, but she's also not a blue dog by any means. So, she's kind of just there, and there's a former Republican governor of Maine who could make it a little more competitive, but really, it's just a lean D state. So with that, we have 30 Republican seats to 20 Democrat seats. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next